Have you ever questioned in your mind if a man was truly toxic or if you're just overthinking again? Well, what if I told you it's possible for it to be very clear to you which one of those it is if you just knew exactly what signs to look for? Which is why on today's show, we're going to be discussing 10 ways to tell if a man is toxic. That way, you avoid the heartbreak and emotional toll you would put yourself through if you chose the wrong man. We have the apology. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is you need to pay attention. You're not going to be of the business of forcing a man to be anything when you meet him. But what I want you to get good at is analyzing what a man would rather do. Let's just call these boxes. We're gonna call them responsibility, okay? So each time that I draw a little bit more of a box, it's gonna equal more and more responsibility, okay? This is a very important thing to recognize, right? When you apologize to someone and you tell them, hey, I messed up. I did something wrong. I shouldn't have done that way. I shouldn't have treated you that way. I shouldn't have said that thing. That was disrespectful of me. You're taking on some responsibility, and some of that responsibility is going on your shoulders. Now, this can be a really good thing if it works well, or a really bad thing if it doesn't work well. Let me give you an example of that, okay? Let's say a guy shows up to a date 1 hour late, right? And you guys were supposed to go out to your favorite Chinese spot. You're sitting there on that date for 1 hour and he doesn't show up until literally 1 hour later than you guys had planned for him to show up, right? Here's the thing that I want you to recognize in that moment. You don't want to try and force him to act anyway upon the fact that he showed up late. You need to let him show you what he would rather do. And in this sense, let's just say for the sake of example, he chooses to say, oh, it's not my fault that I'm late. Literally, you forgot to tell me that this was the sushi spot we were going to. And because you didn't remind me the night before, because you know I had a super busy project at work, I was literally thinking you were talking about the sushi spot that you sent me, or the Chinese spot that you sent me over TikTok, but that wasn't the Chinese spot that we planned to go to. So really, if you would have reminded me of the right spot, I would have went to the right place the first time. I was thinking it was close, and then he's unable to apologize, right? And this is something that you'll notice as time goes on in your relationship with a guy. You'll notice a lack of ability to actually genuinely apologize for any wrongdoing, whether it be something big that he has to take a lot of responsibility for or something very small. Take accountability. You're not going to be able to build a relationship with that man. Okay. It's just not going to work. And something you need to recognize very quickly on is if that man even wants to take accountability and is capable of doing that. Because for some men that you will meet, I'm just telling you the honest truth, some men that you'll meet, you'll realize that to take actual accountability for something they've done wrong, it'll be like you're pulling their teeth. It'll be like nails on a chalkboard. You'll literally see discomfort on their face when they're having to like almost admit that they did something wrong or that they shouldn't have done that thing. And you'll always see them trying to like skate around, having to just say, you know what, I was wrong, I apologize, I shouldn't have done the thing, whether big or small. So those type of men, avoid them like the plague. Point number 2 is about being secretive. Now, one thing that you'll notice with men that you will date, some of them at the very least, is that they will do their best to tell you as little as possible about what's actually transpiring in their life. And one thing that you should take note of is if a man is extremely, extremely secretive with everything that's going on in his life. Like, you know, what did he do this weekend? Where did he go with his mom for Mother's Day, okay? How did he spend, he went out with his family, where did they end up going? And see, this is the thing about men who are being secretive, and I'm gonna give you something that's kind of demoralizing, but it's from my own experience in helping hundreds of women with their own personal situations. Whenever a man is ultra secretive, usually it's because he's hiding something that he really doesn't want you to know about. And most of the time, that thing that he doesn't want you to know about is a girlfriend or a wife or a family, okay? And I'll just be honest with you about that. So I'll even write that here, right? Truthfully and honestly, I've seen a lot of guys do this, and they always have the same approach in terms of how secretive they are about how they're spending their time. Now, I'm not saying that the guys that you should be looking for should be telling you everything they're doing every second of the day, and they should be sending you picture and video evidence of those things. But what I am saying is you'll start to notice a pattern when you literally can't even track what he is doing throughout the day or throughout the week, and you don't even have an idea of what it could possibly be. Because outside of his regular work hours or regular work schedule, you literally can't account for anything he spends his time doing. You don't know who his friends are. You don't really know anything about his family life. You don't know anything about his family schedule. He just kind of is very vague with where his whereabouts are and what he spends his extracurricular time doing. Point number 3 is about expectations. Very important to take note of. This is one of the harder ones to clock. If he has a certain level of expectations for you, and they are tremendously outweighed by what he actually has in terms of expectations of himself, now we have a problem. You're definitely dealing with a toxic man. Let me give you a perfect example of that, right? Let's say you message him and text him because you need something from him or you need an answer. And so you message him like, hey, you said that you were going to call me later this afternoon. I'm just wondering if you're still gonna call me or what's going on, whatever the case may be. He doesn't answer you all day, right? He doesn't answer you in the afternoon, he doesn't answer you in the night, and he waits until the next day, and then he messages you like, oh yeah, my bad. I had some work stuff, and then I got home and I was tired, and then I had some stuff to do. I just didn't really feel like talking on the phone. Cool, that's how he goes about things. Then one day, you're at work, you're busy, you got lots of stuff to do at work, lots of projects to complete, and as you're busy at work, you can feel your phone buzzing. And so you see that it's him, and when you see that it's him, you're like, okay, obviously I can't talk right now, so you put it back away and you continue doing your work. But ironically, now that he can't reach you, he continues spam calling you over and over and over again and texting you over and over and over again until you answer his message. And you finally answer the phone and you're like, look, like I'm kind of at work right now and I'm kind of busy. And he's like, no, but like you can answer me. It's been an hour. It's been 2 hours. Are you telling me you've been working the whole time? You can answer one call for 5 minutes. You can answer a text in 30 seconds. Just answer my call. Just tell me this. I just need that. I just want to know this, right? And so this is the thing that I want you to take and pay attention to, is that if his expectations of you completely outweighs his expectations of himself or what he brings to the table, and you're noticing a lot of hypocritical behavior, right? Then we have a very toxic man on our hands, because there's nothing wrong with him saying that he's busy and wanting you to be understanding of the fact that, hey, sometimes he might not be in the mood to talk, or he might go through some things at work and maybe he doesn't want to talk on the phone, whatever the case may be. But if that's the case for him, naturally, if he's a healthy partner, he should be able to have empathy for you when you're in that same situation, as opposed to feeling like, oh no, you owe me your time 24/7, and my expectation is that you will drop everything and anything for me. But vice versa, if I'm in your shoes, right, and I need you or an answer from you or a response from you, I expect that answer or response right now in this second. And if you take any time to answer or respond, we're gonna have a problem. Point number 4 is about money. So you're going on dates with a guy. As you're going on these dates with a guy and you're getting to know him better and understand how he goes about life better, you're starting to notice a very strange but puzzling and troubling pattern. He always tends to complain to you about the fact that he doesn't have a lot of money to spend. And, you know, it's tight because his job doesn't pay him a lot and all this other stuff. And then you're watching him in terms of like how he goes about his life and what he spends his money on, right? He spends $300 on some Travis Scott sneakers, okay? Do you guys know who Travis Scott is? I know some of you are like, what is this? I don't even know what you're talking about. Travis Scott is a rapper, okay? He's a musician and he makes Nikes that a lot of people like, okay? And he makes these, his Nikes always sell out. So when they drop, a lot of people want them and they resell for a lot, okay? Just for those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, right? So he'll spend $300 on some Travis Scott sneakers, okay, right? He'll spend another $500. You see him go to the Louis Vuitton store, or he's flexing on his Instagram story, him going to the Louis Vuitton store and buying him a $500 Louis Vuitton coat, which he comes to the restaurant wearing and saying, yeah, I just got this at the Louis Vuitton store, okay, right? $200 on video games. Some of you might be like, how do you spend $200 on a video game? When you buy the video games, it's gonna sound very weird, I'll be quick with this. When you buy a video game, there's what we call in-game purchases, where you can actually go into the video game and purchase particular skins, particular weapons, particular whatever you want. I don't play that many video games, but you can make purchases in the video game after you buy the video game. So the spending is not done once you buy the video game. And so let's just say you're clocking that, as the kids say, as you're continuing to know him and know how he kind of spends his time and he spends his money, okay? So let's tally up the things that he spent his money on, okay, right? So you're complaining about money, and you're complaining about the fact that you don't have a lot of extra money at the end of the month or after you get paid, but I see you spending $1,000 a month on things that I think both of us would deem to be not necessary for living life, right? Especially if you're on a budget or trying to save money, right? Purchasing Travis Scott sneakers isn't the difference between life and death, right? Purchasing a Louis Vuitton coat ain't the difference between life and death. Getting these in-game purchases on your video game ain't the difference between life and death. Why waste that money? So why do I say all of this, and why do I consider this a toxic trait that you should stay far away from? Because his inability to manage money properly, right, is also a microcosm for a bigger issue, which just means a smaller example of a larger issue, which is an inability to manage himself and his own life. Because if he can't manage money as a man, when it just comes to himself and what he makes and how he spends it, how do you think he's supposed to do that when now we have his income, your income, and then the income being dispersed amongst you and the children as well, and all of the events and things that they will have to go to, right? What does this also say about his ability to just manage life in general and say to himself, what is necessary? What is unnecessary? Where am I going in the future? And how do I want to get there, right? Money management is a big part of that, right? If you're not responsible with yourself, if you're not responsible with your time, if you're not responsible with the places that you go and the things that you do, you won't be able to manage money properly, right? You have to be a responsible person to be able to do this. So paying attention to how responsible a man is or isn't with his money will tell you a lot about how he'll go about a relationship. Now, I'm not saying that all rich men are going to automatically be non-toxic, but I definitely can tell you a man who has a money management problem, you will not be in a very good relationship with, right? Because if he can't manage money, how you expect him to manage a relationship? For point number 5, we're going to be discussing your social life and why it's so important to take notice of how a guy interacts with your social life. So let's use an example. Let's say you're starting to date a guy, and as you're getting to know him, he's also getting to know the life that you've been living since before you met him. He might not necessarily meet all your friends, but he'll start to hear about them. He'll see you post with them. He'll see those girls on your Instagram feed. Maybe you've taken pictures with them already. Your family as well, right? All of these people are part of your circle. Okay? And one thing that you want to clock, as the kids say, is how is he speaking about your inner circle? And is he constantly discouraging you from hanging out or spending time with those people? What does that actually look like, right? He might say, oh, you have your BFF whose name is Angie. She is someone, I just don't like her vibe. I think her vibe kind of off. I don't think you should really be friends with her, even though I know you guys have been friends since you guys were literally 10 years old. And even though she's had your back for all this time, and even though she's taken care of you and you've taken care of her and you guys have helped each other through a lot of situations, I just, the vibe I get from her is not really vibey. And I think that you shouldn't be friends with someone like that. You should really stop hanging out with her. I don't really vibe with her, right? Oh, and your friend, this one friend you have, Stacy, she's not your BFFFFFF, but she is a best friend. So I see her posting stories. She's twerking a sexy red. I don't know if I really like that. She ain't really the type of girl you should be hanging out with. Oh, and there's this other girl that you spend some time with, right? Her name's Ashley. Yeah, I see her going out and I see her doing some things. I don't really like her either. I think you should really cross that one out too. And see, this is the thing, right? These guys will do something very interesting and psychological. They'll come into your life and then they'll immediately start judging all the people in your life and paint them as problems in your life. and try and discourage you or make you feel guilty for spending time with those people. Because now, as he can kind of talk down on them or tell you, oh, she's bad, that person's bad. Now, if you say, well, I hung out with Angie the other day, I hung out with Ashley the other day, he starts to almost like pout like, oh, that's what you were doing? So you're telling me that we couldn't hang out because you were hanging out with Ashley. You're telling me we couldn't hang out that other day because you were with Angie, that girl that literally you shouldn't even be friends with, that girl that literally is the worst thing ever, right? And so as he's painting this picture, you start to feel like, well, one, either I need to hide hanging out with that person because he seems to not approve of her, or maybe I need to stop hanging out with that person altogether because maybe she is bad news. Maybe she shouldn't be in my life, right? Now, there's a balance to this. Obviously, there can be some scenarios where you might have a toxic friend that you didn't realize was a toxic friend. But one thing I want you to take note of is if a guy just hops into your life and begins speaking down on all of your different relationships and is constantly finding a problem with each and every person that's in your life. Because as he's talking down on all these relationships, what eventually will happen is he'll slowly but surely try and X all of these people out of your life and leave you in isolation, like we've talked about before on the show, right? And so it starts with the rhetoric, okay? It starts with the way he'll talk about them, because as he's talking about them, he's almost trying to emotionally detach you or make you see a different perspective of those people in your life. And one by one, he's hoping you'll eventually say, yeah, you know what? I guess I'll just stop hanging out with that person. Even if as he's telling you these things, you're like, but I don't think that that person is the way that he's thinking or describing her. But whatever, I like this guy, so maybe I just will stop hanging out with her, right? Maybe I just will stop seeing her. Maybe when she asks me to hang out, I will just make an excuse or hang out with the guy instead. Big mistake. Point number 6 is about feelings. What I want you guys to understand, if you start talking and dating a man and you're noticing that anytime you express yourself, especially when you express pain or hurt as it relates to your relationship, his general response is always to be like, look, it's not as bad as you're making it seem. You're overreacting. You're being a little bit dramatic about this. You don't have to make it this big of a deal, right? Why are you being such a woman about this? Why are you being such a girl about this? You're fine, right? This is an example of a toxic man. You're a woman. As a woman, you're not going to feel everything that a man feels. So yes, there will be some things that you feel more intensely because you're a woman, and maybe you are a bit more emotional about certain things than he would be as a man. But that's okay. And I never want you to shy away from that fact, that truth, and I never want you to suppress that fact or truth. You're a woman, you're allowed to feel things as a woman would. The same way he's a man, he's allowed to feel things as a man would. The toxicity comes in when his expectation is, that wouldn't make me mad if I was you in your shoes. So if that wouldn't make me mad if I was you, if I wouldn't be crying because I had a hard day, if I wouldn't be crying because I feel overstimulated, if I wouldn't be crying because I feel overwhelmed emotionally, then you shouldn't be either. And I'm a man, and if I don't feel that emotion or that intensely, if I don't feel that dramatic, if I don't feel like expressing, if I don't feel hurt or I don't feel pain, then you shouldn't feel those things either if you're in my shoes. Or even if you're in the opposite end, on the opposite end of the stick and feeling things yourself, right? So this can become very toxic very quickly, because essentially his expectation is you, woman, should act like a man. You should feel as a man feels. If I can't put myself in your shoes, why are you feeling that way, right? This also shows a lack of empathy. In fact, when a man is in a healthy state of mind, he understands, look, some things, even if I might think it's silly because I'm a man, even if I might think it's over dramatic because I'm a man, I'm with a woman. She's not going to react and respond to things the same way as me. I might have to talk to her a little bit more gentle. I might have to be a little bit more softer with her. Maybe when I do yell, it's a little bit harsh. Maybe I do have to be more gentle with my words around my woman, right? These are things that grown men, they grow, and mature men grow to understand that when we deal with women, we're not going to deal with women the same way that we deal with men. It's just not, that doesn't work like that. For point number 7, you got to be paying attention to how a man treats and respects or disrespects others. When you're with a guy, let's say you go out to a restaurant and this restaurant is super busy, okay? We're talking like every table is full. And you can see like, it looks like they're damn near understaffed because every waiter is running around sweating, helter skelter, trying to deliver orders. It's loud, there's music playing. It's a bunch of chaos, okay? But this is a popular restaurant and you guys are here now, you booked the reservation and this is where you guys are gonna eat. And let's just say for the sake of example that your man orders his steak and he says, look, I really want my steak medium. You better give me a perfectly medium cooked steak. And the waiter brings his steak to the table and the steak is actually well done. And then when the waiter brings his steak to the table and it's well done instead of being medium, he says, waiter, bring your here. I told you, give me a damn MFN medium steak. Your stupid came here with a crisp burnt steak. Are you stupid or are you an idiot? Which one? And you're like, damn, bro, like he didn't even cook the steak. And it's just a steak. He can take it back and get another one. But you're like, maybe I shouldn't say anything, right? And he's screaming and he's yelling at this waiter who's clearly already stressed out because clearly they're understaffed and clearly he has a whole bunch of stuff to do, right? Now, I'm not saying that the expectation should be that your man eats his well-done steak even though he ordered a medium steak, but you want to be paying attention to how someone interacts and talks to other people, especially when angry. Very, very pay attention. Pay attention to how respectful or disrespectful he is when someone does him wrong. Because make no mistake about it, that same type of outburst in a situation like that, you might be thinking, well, he's not yelling at me, so who cares, right? Trust me, when that anger is now directed at you, he will get that same level of disrespectful, okay? So be paying attention to how a guy interacts with others as well when he's angry or upset. And that could apply not just to a random waiter, right? Because the reason I kind of drew this like this is because you're observing him and you're observing the other person, right? It's not just about him and a waiter at a restaurant, right? This could also be family, right? This could also be a friend of his. This could also be a coworker. This could be anyone in his life. And I want you to be very observant of that. Also, and a little bit of a pro tip, be observant of how he talks about these people, okay? So how he talks about these people, whether it be very respectful or very disrespectful, will also tell you a lot about this man. Because remember, if he's angry or upset about one of these friends, fam, or coworkers, and he's talking really, really nasty about them, I'm not just talking about like random gossip, you know, the gossip where it's like, oh, my coworker's really annoying. I'm talking about like, he's talking nasty about that person in his life. And you're like, damn, that's some really disrespectful stuff you're saying about that person. Make no mistake about it. When that anger and that vitriol is pointed in your direction, he will be talking that same nasty way he's talking. I'm not talking about good nasty, nasty. He's that same horrible and nasty way he's talking about that other person. He will eventually be talking that same horrible and nasty way about you to someone else. So don't think in your mind, I'm special. He's telling me this, but he would never talk about me like this. That is a personality trait. So what you're experiencing there is not an isolated incident, and it can be you the same way it can be the waiter, it can be the coworker, it can be the friend, or it can be the family member. Point number 8 is boundaries. Hypothetically, you go out on a date with the guy and you say, look, I'm really not into sleeping with guys on the first night. Cool. He's like, you know what? Yeah, sure, whatever. Can we still go back to my place and drink some wine? You get back to his place to drink some wine, right? And now you set this fence, you set this boundary that you don't want to sleep with him on the first night. So then you guys start kissing and making out a little bit because you're enjoying your time together. And he says to himself, well, wait a second. Even though that boundary was no sex, we're kissing now. Do you think I could maybe escape that boundary a little bit and we could do something a little bit, you know, sexual here? And let's say, for the sake of example, as you guys are kissing and he tries it, okay, you know what I mean by tries it, he tries to put his hand in places, you're like, no, we can't do that. I was actually serious about that. And okay, he tried you. Now he has a choice to make. He can either say, okay, I get it, I understand, I'm not gonna, you know, cross it again, I get what you're saying. Or in some cases, and this is where you have to be paying attention here, he'll say, oh, you're really not going to do this? Okay, we'll see. And then he'll kiss you again. And as he's kissing you again, once again, he says, I wonder if I can weasel my way out of this boundary and do what I really want to be doing here. And so he tries it again. And you'll notice this as a pattern, right? Over and over again, you'll set the boundary, you'll kiss him, you'll do something else, and then he'll try it again. You'll say no, he'll stop for a bit, and then he'll try it again. He'll say no, and then the cycle will just continue and continue and continue until he hopes that you give in. And some of you might be a little bit traumatized by this because for some of you, that's how you lost your virginity. For some of you, that's how you slept with a guy that you really didn't want to sleep with. For some of you that were just really naive at one point in your life, that could have been a situation where you're like, yeah, like I really actually didn't want to sleep with the guy, but after a while, he just kind of broke me down, so to speak, and then I ended up doing it, but I just didn't know any better at the time. And so this is the problem with that, right? And I want you to be paying attention to guys that do this, right? Nothing wrong with setting a boundary with the guy who tries it, because guys are going to try it. But then once you set the boundary, he has to be mature enough to say, okay, I tried it. You said no. I'm not going to continue to force it on you. I'm not going to continue to make you feel uncomfortable about it, whatever the case may be. And if his reaction is the opposite of that, to try and press you more about it, to try and put you in a situation where you feel the need to say yes, or to try to almost like bargain with you. That's very strange. To try and bargain with you to get you to cross this boundary. Oh, but if we do it, it doesn't have to be for that long, or maybe we could do it this way, or you don't have to worry. Nothing's going to happen. And this bargaining process can also be a version of like not respecting the boundary. Because it shouldn't be that pressing. And it doesn't just have to be sex, right? It can also be other things in the relationship that you just say, look, I'm not willing to do this, or I don't want to do this, or this just doesn't work for me, right? And rather than respecting that, or even trying to come up with a compromise so you guys can both be happy, he continues to want to press the issue in order to get his way. That's not, you won't be in a very happy relationship when a man is so fixated on getting his way, no matter what it is, that he can't possibly respect any one of your boundaries, okay? Point number 9 is about being extremely unreliable. I'm gonna give you an example, and then I'm gonna broaden the example to help you understand in a larger sense of the word unreliable, what I really mean. Okay, so let's say, for example, a guy says, yeah, Friday, I wanna really go to the aquarium, okay? So me and you are gonna go see the fish. So today's Monday. On Friday, I wanna go see the fishies with you, and that's the vibe that I wanna do. He sends you some TikToks and all that good stuff. And then he sends you those TikToks, Friday comes, and he doesn't say anything to you. And let's say you were thinking to yourself that you guys would go see the fishies at 7 p.m. because that's when you guys both finish work and that's when you guys would have time to. But now that it's actually Friday, you're wondering to yourself, are we still going to see the fishies at 7 p.m.? Or is this off? Or what's going on? Or where are we meeting? Or are you picking me up? What are the details? And so this becomes a problem now because you're starting to think to yourself, well, okay, is this still a thing? Even though you said at the beginning it was a thing, now I'm not sure. This then becomes a pattern of behavior where you're constantly unsure of whether or not he'll keep his word on things that he promised you. Then you establish a dynamic in your relationship in which his word is no longer bond, where you start to think to yourself, okay, if he says something or he says he's going to do something for me in our relationship or even for himself, I can't actually rely on the idea that this will, what I call, follow through. But this is a major problem here because in a relationship, especially with your man, you should be able to trust in the fact that if he says he's going to do something for me, himself, or our relationship, then that means he's going to do it. He might not do it exactly right now. He might not do it in the next day, but rest assured, if he tells me or gives me his word on something, I can trust that it will get done, okay? That is the way your relationship should be. Men who become very unreliable to you are useless to you. Because if you can't trust that a man will keep his word on anything he says, how are you supposed to build a foundation of trust in your relationship? You can't. Because you're always anticipating, or I shouldn't even say anticipating, having anxiety about whether or not this thing that he said is actually going to come to fruition. Whether a good thing or a bad thing. You literally can't tell until the very last minute if this thing will actually follow through. This is the problem though. It puts you in a very anxious state that will turn you a lot more masculine, because what you'll start to feel like is when he tells you on Monday, let's go see the fishies at 7 p.m., rather than you sitting back, relaxing and thinking how you're going to wear your beautiful dress, or you're going to wear your tightest pair of jeans and you're going to look so good and you're going to look so feminine and sexy and seductive and just, feeling good about yourself and preparing your mind and spirit to go and see the fishies on Friday, right? Rather than being able to be in that mindset, as the week is going by, you're having anxiety like, oh my gosh, it's Tuesday, only a couple days until Friday, and he still hasn't told me anything about what's going on. Oh my God, it's Wednesday now, and we're only 48 hours from Friday. I hope he's gonna message me soon and tell me what's going on. Oh my God, it's Thursday now. Now I need to send a private message to Tomisin, and I need to ask him what should I do if he doesn't say anything about Friday anymore. Oh my gosh, it's Friday now. Should I message him in the morning? Should I wait a couple of hours? What should I do? This is not a good place to be mentally. When you start to feel and have this anxiety ongoing because you cannot rely on your man to follow through with anything. By the time you now get to this date, let's say you even do go on this date, right? You spent so much time in your masculine energy, right? That you're not even able to bring the right energy or presence of you or version of you to that date. Because now you've spent the last couple of days having anxiety about that date, instead of even being able to enjoy anticipating going on that date. Point number 10 is about confidence. Sometimes you'll meet a man. You start to get this really weird feeling. I think he's jealous of me. I'm a pretty woman, and I understand, I get pretty privileged, but I think he's actually jealous of the fact that I'm a beautiful woman. Because every time that, a guy or even a girl will give me a compliment, but it's almost like he wants to crush that. It's almost like when someone gives me, and I put this here because this is like a gold medal, right? It's like a gold medal. It's almost like he wants to crush the feeling that I get when someone compliments me. When people go out of their way for me, it's almost like he wants to remind me that I don't deserve it. As good things are happening to you, it's almost like he starts to have a disdain for that. It's almost like he starts to be repulsed by that. It's almost like he really, really hates it when you're having a good time, when you're enjoying your life, especially if you're enjoying your life outside of him, right? When men see that you're really confident, when men see that your life is really fulfilled, when men see that you have abundance in your life and he doesn't have that, toxic men will try to bring you down to size so that you don't feel too important, too special, too amazing, that you realize you're wasting your time with a bum of a man. If a guy knows that he really ain't much and he really doesn't have much to offer, and he also understands that you're a very attractive and desirable woman, subconsciously, he's gonna feel like there's a ticking time bomb until another amazing, awesome man comes into your life, especially if you're outgoing, and helps you realize that you're wasting your time with a bum of a man, right? Subconsciously, guys who are bums can actually realize that. And so they feel threatened all the time because they feel like if you spend too much time outside, or if you spend too much time being able, a space away from me, being able to maybe eventually recognize that we're not of the same league, and you have men who have way more resources willing to offer you way more in terms of dating you and being your partner, then I'm going to lose you. So I need to continuously make you feel small by making sure you know that you're not all that, making sure you know that, you don't deserve things, and making sure you feel bad about yourself or living your life or having abundance of happiness in your life. Because if you start to feel too much confidence, then you might have so much confidence that you up and leave me.